Peace to your feet, we bringing the news. Facts stay sharp, yeah, we never confused. From the streets to the world, get the real, no cap. Breaking headlines, put the truth on the map. Yo, fast with the facts, we don't play no games. Reporting what's real, we ain't chasing fame. Call Peace TV, stay locked, stay tuned. If you want the real talk, we deliver it soon. Call Peace TV, we bringing the news. Facts stay sharp, yeah, we never confused. From the
Hey guys, back with another video. This video is about our girl Keimani Latigue. In this video, I have an update, a news clipping about the court hearing between Keimani's grandmother and her mom on the probate situation and things like that. I also have a clipping of the press conference from the Child Services Department. And the way this man is playing in our face and Keimani's face is ridiculous. Like, I'm really pissed. I'm really, genuinely pissed because this man says that they had no reason to believe that Keimani was in danger. And then to down the line say that they have no record, no paperwork, no documentation of Keimani being placed into Dorothy's home. Not to mention, he tried to say that it was never a report from anyone, the schools or anything, about Keimani, but then backtrack and say it was from the teacher once the reporter asked him. Also, the big thing about this is he says a man was tested years ago for Keimani and was negative. So he wasn't Keimani's biological father. So therefore, it leads me to believe that Darnell is not Keimani's biological father. They don't have a record of a biological father on file, on birth certificate, or nothing for Keimani. So why is Tiara Caston, her mom, lying? I said from the start, I didn't believe that she knew who Keimani's dad was. So let's jump into these videos and y'all tell me what y'all think. Y'all comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell because I might not speak no more after this. Bye.
About the process to lay her to rest. A decision came out just a short time ago about who will have the right to plan Keimani Latigue's funeral. Let's get right to Silver Barker, who is live from the probate court here in Lucas County. Silver?
Right, well, Mel, this hearing was really over Tiara Caston, the biological mother of Keimani Latigue, and Dorothy Latigue, which is Keimani's grandmother. Originally, the two were going back and forth about who would go forward with her remains and who would be planning the funeral services. The grandmother argued in which, because Keimani has lived with her for the past 5 years, that she should be the one moving forward and planning the funeral services. She argued that having her live in the house with her every day, sending her to school, and the close personal relationship of them over Tiara was more important, in which way she should be able to say what goes forward and what happens next. However, Tiara, which appeared virtually today, was able to talk about her relationship with Keimani. She says that she hasn't seen Keimani since her 11th birthday before this. However, she did have a relationship with her at that time in which she would visit her twice a year and really try to come see her and build that relationship. Now, ultimately, the judge did decide based on two factors. The first factor was how close each relationship was with Keimani, in which I just told you how Tiara was saying her relationship was with Keimani, as well along with how Dorothy was saying her relationship was with Keimani. Now, the second one comes with practicality of plans moving forward with funeral services, in which that was who would be doing what exactly and what were the plans that Keimani's grandmother Dorothy had, along with what were the plans that Tiara Caston, her mother, had. Now, originally, the grandmother did win the decision of moving forward with funeral services. There is a public funeral service they're planning. It has not been said yet with more details, but they are planning to have one this Friday, and there will be a private one as well. There is a date for that as well, which we are not going to disclose just out of respect for them, but the public one they are planning to have Friday. Reporting live in downtown Toledo, Silver Barker, WTOL 11.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Ready? Okay. I'm Suzette Kyle, the chair
of the board of the Lucas County Children's Services. On behalf of my colleagues on the board, I want to once extend our condolences to everyone who knew and loved Keimani Latigue. Losing her at the age of 13 is a community tragedy and leaves a hole that will never be filled. Our board, staff, and caseworkers feel any child's death to their core. We stand with you, heartbroken. We are so grateful to the Toledo Police Department for finding the alleged perpetrator so quickly. And we are grateful to the Lucas County prosecutors for the hard work that they are doing to investigate this matter. Their work to bring this person responsible for this heinous crime to justice is of a paramount importance, and we will assist them in any way we can. Keimani's death reminds us of how vulnerable children are. We pledge to redouble our efforts to protect them. Every step will rely on close relationships in the community. The task force created by Lucas County Commissioners is a good example of that. I know the community is closely following this. I think it's important that people understand that that my involvement, along with Robin Reese and Brenda Osborne, are subject matters experts whose job is to get this task force started. A wide selection of community members will eventually form the working task force. When we do the community, we will see a group of people who represent the whole community and share our values as it relates to protecting children. That's because we share the same goal, which is the best practice-driven child protection system that works with the community to keep children safe. We are ready to walk this path, and I will turn it over now to Executive Director Randall Moon.
Thank you, Dr. Cal. As Dr. Cal indicated, my name is Randy Muth. I am the Executive Director of the Lucas County Children's Services Board. And Dr. Cal, I want you to know your thoughts are shared by everyone involved with the work of child protection here in Lucas County. The pain of Keimani's death will never go away. We know that everyone who dedicates their life to this work shares the community's grief in the most personal way possible. I want to echo Dr. Cal's thanks to law enforcement and the Lucas County prosecutor for apprehending someone so quickly and working so diligently to ensure that the person responsible for Keimani's murder is brought to justice and held accountable for this horrific crime. I also want to thank the county commissioners, former Director Robin Reese, and others in our community for creating the task force to enhance the services we provide to children and our communities. Just as we have been hosting monthly listening sessions in the community, I believe this task force can facilitate additional avenues to support our families and their children, as always, with our community as a valuable and important partner. We all know that safety is as Director of Lucas County Children's Services, I'd ask that you remember our staff as they go out into the community every day to provide services, safety, and supports to the complex dynamics of family need when social crisis occurs. I've seen how deeply this tragedy has affected them, and I thank them for their continuing compassion, work, and the heroism that they do every day. We're aware that the community is looking for answers. It's absolutely appropriate to do so, and the community is entitled to them. We want them too. To that end, we are conducting an internal review to see if anything could have been done or should have been done to prevent this tragedy. Immediately after I learned of Keimani's murder, I asked the Ohio Department of Children and Youth, that's the state agency that has supervisory authority over all local county-level child protection agencies, to conduct a formal on-site review of the services we provided this family and our policies, procedures, practices, and protocols as they were applied to this case. We'll be able to share the results of both of those reviews as soon as they're completed. So a little over a week ago, just 4 days after we learned of Keimani's murder, we did release a timeline of our involvement. And you can find that on our website, lucaskids.net. It's the first thing that pops up when you go there. I'd like to cover some of the important aspects of that timeline with you now. So we received 2 separate allegations of excessive physical discipline by Keimani's grandmother. The first was in December of 2023, 16 months before her murder. And the second was March of 2024, 12 months before her murder. Now you'll see on our website that we received 2 referrals in March of 2024. It's important to understand that those 2 referrals were made within hours of each other and they related to the same event. So there were not 3 separate investigations. There were just 2, one in December 2023, one in March 2024. Prior to those 2 referrals in December of 23 and March of 2024, the last involvement we had with Keimani occurred in 2011 when she was an infant. Further, at no point in our involvement with Keimani was there any mention of Darnell Jones by anyone in the family, by anyone involved with the family, or by anyone associated with the schools. Again, as I said, both investigations alleged that grandmother had used excessive physical discipline. Those investigations were initiated on the very same day that we received the calls. Both investigations involved reviewing the family record, including identified family members, speaking directly with the persons who made the reports, a physical inspection of the home and the living conditions, speaking with the child alone, speaking with collateral sources. These are people who know the family but don't live in the home. Doing background checks, application of state-mandated family assessment and safety assessment tools, and then sending letters to the mandated reporters when our investigation was complete. In both investigations, both Keimani and her grandmother stated that the household consisted of just them. Neither mentioned Darnell Jones, neither identified him as a father of the child, and neither said that he was a support for the child or the father. And again, none of the referral sources nor the collateral sources we spoke with ever mentioned a father nor mentioned Darnell Jones. No record exists which establishes paternity, not with Darnell Jones nor with any other person. There was, back in 2011, an alleged father who was excluded by genetic testing. Subsequent to that, though, there has been no efforts that we can discover to identify a father of Keimani. At the conclusion of both those comprehensive investigations, a team decision was made where it was determined that it would be inappropriate to ask the juvenile court to remove Keimani from her current caregiver. And that team decision was made by the supervisor, the caseworker, in consultation with those documents and tools that I indicated. I think it's important to understand that almost no decision here at Lucas County Children's Services is made by one person alone. Instead of seeking or asking the juvenile court to remove Keimani from the care of her grandmother, we provided short-term services and referred the family to other community supports. Again, our last referral of child abuse or neglect with respect to Keimani was received on March 21st, 2024, more than 1 year prior to her murder. I'm aware of the media reports in which community members have stated that they have called us multiple times and that additional reports were filed, perhaps during the 2024-2025 school year, regarding Keimani's care. This is a concern to us here at Lucas County, because I want to be clear. We have no record of any call from a mandated reporter or community member for an entire year prior to her murder. We have no record of anyone from Toledo Public Schools ever calling us with respect to Keimani. We have no record of anyone calling us ever with concerns about Darnell Jones. Therefore, I'm asking anyone who believes that they may have called Lucas County Children's Services regarding Keimani within the past year, please call our Family Center hotline, and that number is at 419-213-3833. That's Let us know when you think the call was made. Let us know who you think you called. But most importantly, let us know what number you called from. When we get that information, we'll work together with you and our telephone provider to figure out what happened. Then we'll report the results of that investigation back to the community. So we received 13,000 allegations of child abuse and neglect. 9,000 of those came from mandated reporters. That's 70%. Because of that, we'll be reaching out to our mandated reporters starting very soon to discuss the reporting process and hear any feedback that they might have. Specifically, I'll be emphasizing when they have concerns of child abuse or neglect, it's important that they call our child abuse hotline and only our child abuse hotline. The number's on our website, lucaskids.net, and is 419-213-2273. And the 2273 is CARE. So it's 419-213-CARE. This is important because when a call is received by that child abuse hotline, a number of things happen. First, and perhaps most importantly, a permanent record of that call is created. And once it's entered into our system, it can't be deleted by anyone at the county or state level. It's there forever. The second thing is that it links the child with all of the past history of that family, including any persons identified as a family member, any past reports, and whether or not any county has current involvement with this family. And that's irrespective of the county that created these documents. This is a statewide database. So when you call, so if somebody had called with Keimani, we would automatically know everything there is to know in that system about her and all of that, but only if it's referred to that child abuse hotline. Then the system establishes and tracks when certain actions are required and completed. For example, under certain circumstances, we're required by law to respond within 1 hour. What starts that clock is that call to our child abuse hotline. It starts that 1 hour clock and it starts a tracking mechanism so that we know that we have complied with statute, law, and best practice. More than that, it also enters this into an aggregate database that I can access management reports and that administration can use to make sure that we're following the law and adhering to best practice. So I'll be emphasizing that. The last thing is that, well, I guess not the last thing, but another thing is that I want all our mandated reporters to understand that the law requires us to send a letter at the conclusion of the investigation. As you guys know, because you've heard me say this a million times, child welfare records are confidential. When you call me, unfortunately, I can't comment for the most part. There is a narrow exception in that law for mandated reporters. The law says that when we do an investigation, we must send a letter to every mandated reporter that makes a referral and tell them 4 things. Whether we initiated an investigation regarding the report, whether we're otherwise involved with the family, the statement as to the general status and health and safety of the child, and whether the investigation resulted in the filing of a complaint in juvenile court. So I'll be asking mandated reporters to look for those letters. If you don't get one, give us a call. Finally, I'll be asking mandated reporters that if at any time during your involvement with the child, if you get the letter and it just doesn't make sense to you, if you don't hear from us, or if anything just doesn't make sense, please call our Family Help Center hotline. We want to be sure that we're doing everything that we can do to support the community in its mission to make the community safe for every child. Justice for Keimani starts with the conviction of the person responsible for this terrible crime. And it continues with the community coming together to protect vulnerable children. With that, I'll take questions. But remember, the statutory authority I have to disclose details which would otherwise be confidential is narrow. And beyond that, I'm simply not going to say anything that I believe would in any way jeopardize obtaining criminal accountability for Keimani's murder.
You've probably seen, I would imagine, the teacher from Benadventure that has mentioned calling in. So it is your belief, and you believe in your records, that you do not have record of that teacher ever calling. Is that correct?
We do have a record of that teacher calling. Again, let's be clear on what I said. We do acknowledge that the community called in December of 2023.
So that teacher is one of those who were in 23 or 24?
Yes.
Okay. Which one was that?
I'm not gonna, I can't go that deep. I just will say that we have confirmed that those calls occurred.
Okay, all right. I just want to make clear that she's come public about saying that. I want to make sure that that was the one you had record of.
Yes.
Okay. And so you're saying that nobody between March of 24 to present, or to the time of the murder, had ever called and had ever given you any information? That's
correct. There's no record of any call.
Is there a possibility they could have called another number, or could have called somebody else, or anything like that? Is there an issue where maybe there's too many phone numbers or too many different avenues to call?
That certainly is a possibility, and something that I want to explore, which is why I've asked the community to come forward if they believe they called within the last year. And if they can tell us, sometimes they can say, yeah, here's what I went on the website and this is the number I called. If it's our child abuse hotline, then we know that's probably where it went. They may have called somewhere else. If that's the case, then I want to know what happened, and we'll look at what procedures or policies we can change. But that's the purpose of me telling mandated reporters, please, it's so important that when you call, use our child abuse prevention hotline.
Do those have the same sort of record system that the child abuse one does? So you guys are able to go back and see that maybe that call was made that they're saying?
I believe that our carrier will be able to tell us when we receive calls. I will say that with our child abuse hotline, there are additional safeguards and additional redundancy that applies.
Question for you about grandma. Did grandma have kids in her care, and did she have any kids removed from her care by Children's Services?
Yeah, unfortunately, that exceeds the statutory authority I have. I can only talk about a particular case.
Okay, because I've heard concerns from people that were children taken, and they couldn't figure out why Keimani was still there.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm only allowed to talk about Keimani's case.
Okay. In the discussions that investigators had with her, did she deny that there was any abuse in this 23 and 24 interaction? Can you describe to us what she was saying to your investigators?
Well, you use the term abuse, which is actually a legal term. Grandmother did indicate and did admit that she had used physical discipline.
And was Keimani okay with it?
I think Keimani stated she understood the reason for it, but I don't know that she was so okay with it.
But did she ever ask, was she okay with what had happened to the point where she was okay staying in the home?
Yes, Keimani indicated on both occasions and to school officials that she felt safe in the home.
And how do you parse that out when the adults in the room and there may be other external pressures? How do you parse out that kid is really telling you what he or she really feels and just isn't worried about that person standing in the corner of the other room?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's why we speak with the child alone. And I understand that might be different than speaking elsewhere. That's why we look at other collateral sources, look at other statements that the child has made. We ask her what her supports are, and then we follow up with those.
And the grandmother has said before that, she was corrected in how to properly handle situations like this. And she said that she was told, one swat on the butt. Is that something that a caseworker or anyone would ever tell a guardian that that's appropriate?
Lucas County Children's Services does not endorse, and we don't recommend the use of any corporal punishment. However, Ohio law does state that is a decision that is reserved to the parents, and that if parents decide in using their exclusive judgment to use corporal punishment, we do provide guidance on how to do that. And we would say to use, if you have to do that, use an open hand on a non-sensitive area. Don't leave marks. Don't use an object.
Was there any sort of background check done into the grandmother?
Yes.
was there anything that raised any flags based off of her criminal history?
There were not.
If dad was part, if it ever had surfaced in a conversation, or if he had come up, would that have made your work any different? Would the caseworker have handled it any differently if dad were listed or mentioned?
Yeah, absolutely. If there's a father that's identified, we have to talk with all the principals in the case. So the identified can be two ways. One, established as the father in the case, and we have a record of that. Or the child can identify somebody that they view either as a father, an alleged father, or an actual father. So if either one of those things had happened, if our database had indicated we had an identified established father, we would have been required to reach out to that individual. If the child had identified, hey, this gentleman is dad, or he is a support, or I view him as dad, we would have reached out. Those did not occur in December or March of last year.
And would that have changed what you would have done when it comes to a placement with her if dad had surfaced?
No, I suppose it depends on what we would have learned. From whoever was identified as dad. But no, I mean, we determined that the placement there was appropriate. All the basic needs of the child were being met. She was getting all of her sustenance, her housing conditions were fine, her school and medical conditions were being met. So the presence of a father would not have caused us, I think, to recommend to the juvenile court that they change custody or placement.
And in March and in this 23 and 24 interaction, how did mom come into play? Was she notified? Was she discussed?
Again, that I can't go into.
You said that sometimes you'll respond within an hour to a hotline call.
Yeah.
What would those? Can you describe some of the occasions where that? Well,
Yeah. If the allegation is that a child is in immediate risk of serious physical harm.
You mentioned that her school needs were being met. I mean, she had been at multiple schools, transferred multiple times. Did that raise any flags to you guys or alert you of any potential issues?
No, and that point's been brought up, and that's a great point, and I understand that. No, we respect the family's ability to determine what's best. In fact, we encourage families to come together without the assistance or interference of the state of Ohio or Lucas County to do what is in the best interest of their families. We're not going to second guess whether a child has moved 2 times, 3 times, or 6 times. As long as the child educational needs are being met, then we trust the families to make those decisions.
And can you also kind of discuss in just general terms what it takes or at what point a child is removed from a home?
Yeah, well, anytime that we believe that the child is in imminent risk of physical harm, or, well, let me back up. So if we believe that, we have 2 courses open to us. We can make a determination as to whether we believe the family can and will work with us and ensure the safety of the children. If the answer to that question is yes, then we'll try to work with the family before going to court. If the answer to that question is no, that despite the reasonable efforts that we have made, this family or this child remains at risk, then we have to go to court. It's important to understand, Lucas County Children's Services, no children's services agency in Ohio can remove children. We're the only ones who can't. Police officers can, courts can. What we have to do in that circumstance is take those facts to a neutral, impartial magistrate or judge, and that neutral or impartial magistrate or judge makes those determinations.
I want to get into a little bit of the history with Keimani. So when she was born, was she put into foster care originally?
Again, unfortunately, my reading of the statute, which I'll provide you a copy of, does not allow me to go back further than that, just to say a timeline of the history. I'm allowed to talk about the timeline of the events that were relatively close and involved the current caregivers, but caregivers that weren't involved with this, I just can't go that far back.
Okay, so can you tell us then when she was put into care of grandma?
No, because all we have are statements from family members. I don't have any, there's no documentation as to when that occurred.
there's no documentation when she was put into grandma's care.
Correct.
How'd she get into grandma's care then?
I can't go into that either.
Another thing community residents have brought up, the thoroughness. When you interacted with her in 24 and 23, people have concerns about the thoroughness. Was everything done? Was it a cursory check? Was it a quick one? Do you feel comfortable with the thoroughness that the caseworkers went through in both of those instances?
Absolutely. There's, this is one of the, this is a case that both of these assessments, I look back and I say, there's nothing I say I wish we'd have done differently. We did everything that you would expect is consistent with best practice. We went out, we initiated the very same day. We went out, we talked with everybody. We found 2 collateral sources. We applied the family assessment, risk assessment, safety assessment. We talked with the child. We looked through the entire house and saw no evidence of anyone other than the 2 people who said that they lived there. So no, I am confident. I'm confident in my own judgment that these were 2 exceptional and comprehensive assessments of risk. I don't want to speak on behalf of the state, but I have to believe, based on my 18 years as a director, that when the state looks at this, they'll agree as well.
We bring in the news. Facts stay sharp, yeah, we never confuse. From the streets to the world, keep it real, no cap, you're breaking headlines. Put the truth on the map, call it peace. We bring in the news. Facts stay sharp, yeah, we never confuse.